Okay. Um, okay. Yeah, so you mentioned you went through depression, and I'm assuming at that time you did not have the knowledge, as you did now. And so you probably had to look for help with that. Did you seek counseling?
Yes, I did. Well, my initial course of action was to go and see a doctor because, I was
Ah,
at the verge of, I was struggling with suicidal thoughts. And fortunately,
mm,
my 5-year-old saved me because as I was pleading for God or whoever, that is, whatever force that
mm,
is, to kind of take me because I just couldn't cope anymore. My son called my name, and I was immediately kind of jolted out of that state of mind and say, wait a minute, I can't do that. How am I even thinking, contemplating that kind of thought? So my first course of action was to go and see a doctor. Unfortunately,
oh,
there was no compassion. And to cut the long story short, I'm not gonna, elaborate too much on it, but
mm,
the response was, here is a prescription for Prozac. And I looked at it, walked away, and I have to be honest with you, I have never been to a doctor's office ever since. And that's like over 30 years, well, 25 odd,
wow.
yeah, 25 years.
Oh,
I don't take any medication. I don't seek
mm,
medical help because I realized that, they are, the pharmaceutical industries, it wasn't the route for me. So then, okay, I thought,
mm,
well, what else can I do? I thought, okay, counseling was kind of, taking kind of, it was kind of starting really, because to this day I think there's still a lot of stigma attached to counseling, because people think that if you go to a counselor, you're not coping well. Of course, if you need help, it's like
mm,
people still think, you should be able to stiff up a lip and deal with it. It's like, no, I need a space to talk. So that was important. So I made the most, because remember, I'm now here in Wales, away from my background, away from my culture, away from sunshine, away from my family, away from
mm,
everything I knew that was familiar and dear to me and supportive. And I have no network, I have no help really. So I went to see a counselor,
mm,
and decided to then become a counselor. So I did a degree in counseling, but what I realized,
mm,
although it was kind of it was a boost. It took me back to my center. It took me back to my ability to deal with my day-to-day routine and look after myself and look after my son. But what I
mm,
realized was that I needed more than that. Counseling in and of itself wasn't enough. So I
mm,
started looking for alternative ways, energy work. I started developing my spirituality, my sense of connection to
mm,
something intelligent and powerful and beautiful,
mm,
that's that's still my journey. It never ends,
mm,
because this journey
mm,
is never ending really. It's the path of self-awareness and personal development, and what in the counseling world is known as a self-actualization. Self-realization
mm,
was first coined by Maslow, but it's more,
mm,
Carl Rogers came up with this technology, this terminology of self-actualization. He said that we
mhm,
are born with this inner drive to evolve, to expand, to develop and grow as an individual. So I started giving more attention to that, and that's an inner journey. So counseling
mm,
was had its place, because it was some where I could verbalize and self-express and be heard, because the important thing about us self-expressing is to feel heard and held, and seen by someone else, you know. So that's an important element. But then I started developing more of my spirituality, and I realized, then I became, you know, as a counselor myself, I wanted to do more, to give more, but I was limited. I could only, especially as a school-based counselor, I found my experience frustrating because I wanted to do more, but the schools I was working with, and the organization I was working under, and the association that I had to abide by their rules, wouldn't really give me this free range way to be holistic and educate the young people in a different way, in a holistic way. So I had a burnout. I published the first book I published when I was working as a school-based counselor, a book about us for young people, young, you know, especially the children transitioning from primary school to secondary school. I created workshops, but the schools weren't interested. So it was really tough. It was challenging to work as a school-based counselor, within a toxic, rigid environment. So so that became for me more apparent that counseling wasn't as empowering as I thought it should be. I mean, I'm not here to criticize the industry. I'm just here to share my own professional and experiences. So hence I don't practice as a counselor anymore, because it goes against my beliefs, because I really believe it's not empowering enough. So I need to do more than that. So I became a mentor instead, and teacher. So with my writing, my intention is to reach people across the globe by reading my books and taking my courses and working with me. And you know, I'd love to touch on a little program I created for young people in particular. We can talk about that at the end. But basically, my counseling journey has come to an end in terms of me practicing as a counselor. But of course, I use a lot of my skills. It's all transferable. So I transferred all my knowledge and developed even more through creating content.
Well, I'm actually really inspired by the evolution of your journey. Like,
Right.
you know, like
It's been very bumpy,
how,
you know. Yeah, I know you
yeah,
read my book, so you know it's been a roller coaster. It's been really challenging, but you know, when I look back, I would go through everything all over again, because I became the person who I am today because of based on my experiences and how I dealt with the experiences, knowing that there's so much more still to come and to grow and develop, because like I said, the journey to self-actualization is never ending. How about
well,
you?
yeah, it's
Tell me a little bit about your experiences, you know, going through depression and your own counseling experiences. How was that for you? I'm very curious.
ah uh it was so difficult.
Oh,
Like, I think, yeah, like I also had a bit of journey, with that. Like, maybe I can trace it back to when I was 12 or 13 years old.
wow.
Like, that was when I realized that something is wrong. Like, I kept feeling like very down. Like I lost interest in what I used to be interested in, and then I was like having thoughts of dying.
Right.
And back then I didn't know, like I was too young to even know like depression or something, but I just knew something was wrong, like I can't be like that all the time. And I tried to voice it out to my parents, like my mom, but actually yeah, like they didn't understand like depression. I think their generation is like they don't really understand mental illness, and they have a lot of stigma against it. Like they think it's like weakness, or it's like dangerous. Like they don't bother to even understand it. Like I can see in my generation now there's a huge shift, but yeah, like they back then they really have no concept of what depression is, so they didn't even suspect that I could be suffering from depression. But I knew something was wrong, and I tried to like ask for help, but it's really, really tough to ask for help that you don't even know what the help is. Like I think I said something like, can I go to a doctor or something? And my mom was like, no, like I have no money for you to go to a doctor. And then it threw me into a huge existential crisis. Like, uh, if I don't even seek, I really need this help, but if I can't even get it, then it's like, what's the purpose of me doing everything, like earning money? Like, yeah, like, anyway, the way they dealt with it was they just ignored it. And then because of that, I felt like, and I tried opening up to my friends, but like young people at like 13 years old, what would they know about these kind of issues, right?
Yeah.
They don't. So I felt all alone, but I knew I had to like keep trying. So I just kept trying. I think my journey with mental health is just like I just kept trying whatever I could. So I think went to a teacher, and then like teacher led me to the counselor, and I thought like, okay, maybe the counselor can help me. I had a glimmer of hope that I can be helped. But back then it wasn't even common for students to go up to find the counselor themselves, because usually it's like the kind of troubled teens that are sent to the counselor. And I was like a top student, like I was not the profile of a troubled teen. So like it was, yeah, like it was very scary when I went up to the counselor. But yeah, like I soon realized after a few sessions with the counselor that she's not able to like help me, because I mentioned to her the problems, but I don't know, for some reason, like um she's just not really getting to the root of the problem, and like kind of assume that like I'm facing stress from other issues like my studies instead. And that has been my realization of school counselors in general. Like they seem to focus more on like your stress from studies, because the education system in my country is very stressful, and stress is a very, very huge problem. So they just kind of assume that if you're depressed, it's coming from stress of schoolwork. Like they don't think it can be anything more than that. But my intuition back then, even when I didn't know what was going on, my intuition was telling me it's something very deep. Like there's something kind of very wrong about the way that how the adults around me are also disconnected, and most people are like not aware of this issue. I knew there was something like very deep that we had to look at, but it's just like the counselors, I didn't feel that they were able to do that. And I feel that to some part, like they're kind of inauthentic, because I subsequently had more experiences with counselors in uni, because this became a like recurring problem. It was never solved, so I was kind of depressed throughout my whole adolescence, but I was just like suppressing it and like dealing with it, trying to get through it. Like I had several suicidal thoughts. Thankfully, I didn't act on it, but because I had this hope, I held on to hope that I can find a solution. But each time I went to counselors, even in uni, I had a breakdown and I went to a counselor. And then they were just like addressing superficial things, like how to manage your symptoms and stuff. And I kind of inauthentic, because there were things I felt they were like not able to do under like their professional limitations. Yeah, I felt they'll say things like, oh, if you say something that is like about uh uh we might have to like tell this to your parents or something like that. Like they were just like going by the rules. And then I felt like I needed a human to listen to me, but like the human element was kind of missing. So
Mhm.
I knew that it was not enough. Like it was good that there's someone to talk to, but even so, it's a bit depressing. The fact that I had to go to a room to talk to someone instead of having friends or like a network of people around me whom I can talk to. Like the fact itself is kind of depressing. So I knew there was something kind of deeply wrong with the way our culture or the whole system looks at mental health. Yeah. And like you, I actually went to a psychiatrist, I like a doctor as well. That was when I was like at a very, very low stage. Like in uni, I had this breakdown and I was just struggling to even get through the semester. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't wake up at all, to even do my work. And I went to the psychiatrist kind of as a last resort because I don't really want to like approach it
Meditate.
from like medication.
Yeah.
And what threw me off was that the psychiatrist was like, yeah, so uncompassionate, totally lack compassion. Like she just like I cried in front of her because she asked me to tell her what's wrong. But how do I even start to tell you what's wrong in my whole life, right? Like then I started crying. Then she was saying like, oh, don't cry, like I have no time, like quickly tell me your problem, otherwise I can't help you. And then she was like showing like a list of patients, like how many patients go to her. And I feel like I'm just uh like a like one of the many like patients in her list. Like my life, like my humanity was disregarded.
Yeah. It's just a number,
So
numbers game, isn't it?
yeah, and that really kind of I guess like um showed me like kind of like the ugly reality of our society. Like it's just trying to keep people functioning and keep up with the efficiency. Like I felt like I was a robot. She was just ask me each time I visit her, like, oh, how do you feel? Do you feel better?
Mm.
Do you feel more energy? Can you function? Then I felt like I was a robot being sent to servicing. And
It's a
I
good
told myself,
analogy.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and I felt so dehumanized. And I think that is a big part of why I took up this journey that I'm
Mm.
doing, because I was completely disillusioned with like the way things work. And
Yeah.
I think I have very good reasons too, because I just don't think like, yeah, I don't think this makes sense at all. Um so yeah, like I visited psychiatrists, psychotherapists subsequently, and counselors. I think yeah, my conclusion I is that these are not enough. Yeah, like I kind of also embarked on like I took up personal responsibility like you, like to go and dive into
Well,
alternate, yeah,
it's
like
the
alternate
way. It's the only way.
solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did my own studies and now I'm taking experiments in my life, huge risks to do things that like I'm not supposed to, but
Yeah.
like I think that yeah, like it's I can see that there are limitations, there are obvious limitations in the conventional like solutions that like people
Yeah. Yeah.
say, yeah. And
Mm.
society kind of assumes that if you go and like seek these solutions, then you'll be fine. But
Mm.
that's not like that's not how it is.
Okay.
And the very idea that it to be fixed, you need to be fixed by this thing, it's like kind of like what's wrong, right? Like
Um,
um yeah, it's like yeah, like the pain, I think the pain that we're facing is crying out. It's like something crying out for our attention
yeah.
to look at something deeper. Not
Yeah.
not something to be taken away, to be fixed so that we can continue to be productive citizens or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry about your experiences. But on the other hand, well done for realizing, coming to the realization and taking personal responsibility, which is key. It is key because
mm,
it is by taking personal responsibility that you can take to make the decisions that suit you. We are unique individuals. Not everything is going to work the same way for everybody. And my experience going to see the doctor about it is like, I was pouring my heart out, and the phone went, and the man decided to answer the phone whilst I was in tears, and I'm thinking, wow, what has just happened here? And then he put the phone down, writes me a prescription here, if you're not back till in 6 months, come back to see me. I'm thinking, I don't think so. This is not how I'm going to heal myself. So it's very robotic, it's very clinical, and it's not how we can effectively heal ourselves and take ourselves in a journey to health and well-being, because the flip side of all this mental illness is health and well-being. So wellness needs to be a holistic endeavor. You can't just heal the mind by talking. It certainly cannot heal that with medication. That is really, as far as I'm concerned, this is my opinion. So everybody's entitled to their choices and opinions. We're not here to compare. Everybody has the free will to make their choices. My choice, and I'm glad that your choice was also a more holistic, energetic, spiritual, emotional, physical, mental way, because you touched on solutions. Those counseling is an intervention. It doesn't really offer solutions. So what I feel I created through going through my experiences and writing my latest book is that we need to operate on existentially speaking. So I created this metaphor with a 4-petal flower. And it's important for us to realize that we have all these 4 main elements. We have this body. We're not our bodies. We create through our minds. We experience life through our emotions, but we are a divine, spiritual, eternal, infinite, cosmic fractal of pure light and love and intelligence that embodies life through this physical vessel. So it's important to nurture and learn about all those 4 elements in a holistic way, so that in the middle of it is your center, yourself, your self-awareness. So it's important for you to know who and what you are, so that you can empower yourself and make decisions that is based on what fits you, what's unique to you, what suits you, what empowers you. We all entitled to our own realizations, but it starts with personal responsibility. We can't, it's like, the metaphor that I used to use as a counselor with my young people in schools. I said, it's like counseling. They were kind of sent to me in the room as if, it was as if it was a punishment, which was hard. But I always managed to give them the power to choose. And then once they got to know me a little bit, my metaphor that I used to share with them is like, counseling, come and see me is like, jumping on this boat that will take you across this turbulent water so that you can cross the river, get out and walk with your own 2 feet. It can't be something that you become dependent on. The counselor or anybody has this, no one has the solutions and the answers for you, but we can find solutions in newer alternative ways. So it's important to
Mm,
take care of the whole of you. We have to treat the whole of you.
mm. Indeed, I think it's a very holistic thing. And um I'm starting to see that in my journey now that
Yeah.
yes, like there are multiple dimensions involved. Just now you mentioned like the metaphor that you had,
Mm.
like in your book, you write about this living flower metaphor. I think that's a very beautiful metaphor. It's on your
It's
wall or something.
it's really meaningful, really, because it all started with the loss of my husband, when he left me a note saying that he was going to take flowers to his mother's grave because he committed suicide on his mother's death anniversary. And that was meaningful and significant, and that kind of stayed with me, and then it became the
Mm,
metaphor that I created when I started doing my degree. It was part of my
mm,
assessment, my viva, my the papers that I wrote, and it
mm,
evolved, and it keeps evolving. I have the flower in many different ways to inform, inspire, educate, and empower young people.
mm. Yeah, that's really nice. Uh, do you think what do you think this has to offer that traditional counseling does not? Like what does it um yeah, like what do you think that it is different about this approach? You know,
Well, it's like if you think about, let's think about the counseling being one of the petals of the flower. So you have the
mm,
flower over there, I have it up in the book. So, if you think about counseling as being one petal of the flower, you need to look after your body, you need to look after your emotions, find tools, but most importantly, you need to realize that you are this eternal fractal of intelligence that never dies. So in that respect, when someone realizes that, wait a minute, so if I never die, my soul, my consciousness never dies, only my body does, then killing the body doesn't really guarantee the end of suffering, because
mm,
someone is going through depression or any mental health issue, challenge, the pain is not of a physical nature. So what's the good in killing the body? It's like,
mm,
someone who becomes self-awareness. So if we can link back to your first question about the root cause of mental illness,
mm,
being the lack of self-awareness and emotional literacy, then this flower metaphor gives a lot of information and inspiration and education and empowerment for you to raise your self-awareness and become emotionally literate, to be able to deal with your issues in a powerful, meaningful way that you can discern for yourself what's best for you. I'm
mm.
aware, I'm mindful that our time might lapse again. So
Ah,
I'm not sure whether you want to wrap it up or
I
I would
think
like to finish with a message to young people. I don't know how long you need for the
ah
to wrap things up.
uh maybe I'd like to just ask if you have more to add about like the solution part or the limitations of counseling. Is there any you want to elaborate more on it, or is that enough?
Well, it's a process. There is no
Mm,
quick fix. The personal develop, the self-awareness doesn't come overnight. It's a lifelong journey, but it starts with a solution. So,
mm,
if someone is thought-provoking ideas can kind of change a person's perspective just like that, and then it's like, okay, well, then what can I do? It's like, this is what's happening. It's not what has happened that is important is what can you do about it? So if visiting a counselor is a starting point, then you can add to it. It's like building the flower. So have the counseling as one petal, but then look after your body and your nutrition. Make sure you are resting and you have, you are expressing yourself in a safe environment to someone who can see, hear, and hold you in an empathic, compassionate way. But develop a sense of spirituality that makes sense to you. Have time to yourself for reflection and journaling and meditation and walks in in nature. So all those elements are really important.
Yes, so I think maybe we can't finish within this. It's a bit
Yes.
rushed. So I
We
think we
have
have to do a
4 minutes or something. So, what
yeah.
I like to, to finish with a message to young people, it's like find what you love doing. Follow your heart's deepest desires. Ask questions. Don't just accept what's imposed or strongly impressed upon you by social systems, social media, and expectations. Personal development is absolutely vital to your health and well-being and fulfillment. So find what you're passionate about. And I created a program called Teen Talks Club. I'll give you some more information. I'll create a webinar or something. But anyone who can find me, they can find me. I also contributed to a book for teenage girls. But you can find my work accessing my website www.btalksbooks.com. If you could put that on the description or on the podcast that
Yes.
people could find me, that would be amazing.
Yes, yes. And you if they are interested to read your book in which you talk more about the living flower metaphor.
Yes.
Yeah, like how can they find this book? Can you say the title of the book again and how can
So
they buy it?
the book is called Divine Soul, Sacred Body, From Suicide to Sovereignty. Maybe you can have that on the on your description as well. So divine soul. So we have this divine element, this divine spark of source creation, call it what you will, that it gives life to this physical sacred body. And the sequel of this book is called Creative Mind, Empowering Emotions, and that's going to be how to embody your sovereignty. So that's a project that I have on the go at the moment, but I have no idea when it's going to be finished because I got so much going on at the moment.
Well, but that's exciting. I'm glad to hear that you have constant developments in your
Well,
work.
it's
Yeah.
never ending. There is always the result. I'm a solutionary, and I have in some ways I feel my work is kind of pioneering, and one of the reasons perhaps I'm finding so much it's obstacles in my ways because it's different. So even in the counseling industry, I'm finding resistance and
Yes.
it's different and challenging and controversial.
Yeah. But I really appreciate your insights on this kind of out of the box,
Yes.
perspectives. I think we need that.
Totally.
Yeah, I think we
It
need
resonates with the work that you do. Absolutely. It's completely
yes.
out of the box.
Yeah. That's why I'm very happy to have you
Yeah.
here share with us.
Thank
I do
you.
think that these insights have a lot of value and we do need to look at things from a different angle.
Totally.
And it's a lifelong mission. Yeah, like it
Absolutely.
in our own
Maybe
journeys.
we can create a series. Maybe we can, choose, have shorter talks and
Mm,
focus on one thing, and maybe, you know, we can develop this and talk about the 4 different elements of the existential idea that I bring into my
mm,
work. So maybe we can
mm.
do that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for today. Thank you for coming on to my podcast and sharing your insights.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Yes, thank you. The pleasure
Okay.
is always a privilege. Thank you. And well done for doing the work that you are doing. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.